to come here, first as a citizen of the Republic of Liberia, second, and as lawmaker, enacted the statute, thereby giving TRC the mandate to carry on the functions that she's carrying on right now. Before I proceed with introducing myself, I will firstly highlight some of the historical facts in summary to you. First and foremost, as a student of political science, it is very important that we understand conflict and understand crisis, because they are two different words. If we were called to explain the Liberian civil conflict, living crisis, it's a serious situation, because in layman terms, conflict is the small brother and crisis is the big brother. Conflict talks about disagreement among parties as a result of ideas and interests, which emphasizes the process rather than the end. Crisis talks about a very serious danger or destruction as a result of differences which resulted from conflict. Liberian situation today, if we were to provide the historicity, we believe that we need to start from conflict, then we'll get to crisis, then for crisis, then we'll get to conflict. But before we proceed with that, let me first introduce myself. I believe as a public servant, there are a number of people by way of conversation must have known me. But I'm Isaac Wehyee Nyenabo, born August 6, 1964, in Two-Zone, Grand Judea County. I did my early education in Wehyee Assembly of God, graduated 1984 as a vice for the county, and by records I took the second place in the whole country, 1984. To 1985, Isaac Nyenabo came to Monrovia, entered Cottonwood University College up to February Vacation School completion, 1990. Isaac Nyenabo is MA Kennedy at RBB Graduate School of International Relations, reading political science. Isaac Nyenabo has worked with the National Bank of Liberia from May 1, 1990 to January 2nd, 1997. January 3rd, 1997, I served as Vice President of Agriculture Bank. At the time, Masur Kaba was the president. And at the National Bank, I rose from the rank of Junior Bank Examiner, Senior Bank Examiner, Assistant Manager for Foreign Exchange and Trade before my appointment. Isaac Nyenabo left the country, went to Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea, worked with Christian Community Care, non-governmental organization. Isaac Nyenabo served as one of the founding members of LURD. Isaac Nyenabo came 2003 November, the end of the first week in November, to be precise, November 10, appointed Controller General, Republic of Liberia. Isaac Nyenabo, 2005, October 11, elected Senior Senator of Grand Jide County. Isaac Nyenabo, January 2006, elected President Pro Tempore of the Liberian Senate. Isaac Nyenabo has visited over 50 countries in the world. He's the president of the National Group of Lawmakers in Liberia, with the IMF, the Interparliamentary Union, and the African Parliamentary Union. With respect to our primary and secondary education, one of your commissioners can attest to that because she was queen for our school during the period at AGM. Commissioner Umusila. She and myself were on cutting air at Assembly of God together, and then she bet me at Cotton Down, so she can attest to that. With respect to my entry in Liberia, in Monrovia, I came 1985 after my graduation from high school. I can easily remember the chairman of TRC, lived behind us at Loking Town. I live in the late Lassana Rabo's house. Kofi Woods, Minister of Labor, lived right to me, adjacent to me, and he lives behind us. So we interacted together. I can easily remember my interaction with the Commissioner Pierre Bou was the time that we wanted constitutional interpretation towards amendments, and we invited her as an expert to speak on the subject matter at Virginia last year. She appeared and she made an impressive presentation, and I must say that's highly commendable. I also saw Sheikh Afuma Kone in the 90s when he headed, and I believe he's still the head of the Interfaith Mediation Committee, and by the war that a kind of collective syndrome had engulfed our people, the Crowns and Mandingos were grouped together, and we were in the barracks and he was right Clay Street. I hope he's still there in the tall building with Omer Kennedy and the rest of the people. I don't know whether Omer Kennedy is still alive. Oh yeah, Omer Kennedy across the road. That's what I said. Opposite, yeah, that's what I say, across the road. That small austere building across the road. Why am I doing this? I'm doing it to provide a kind of forum for all of us to relax and discuss the subject matter. I believe I have made numerous calls to the TRC that most of the witnesses that have come here have not been able to provide some truthful information, because perhaps some of them read law, honor international humanitarian law, violation of human rights in terms of murder, massacre, displacement. Liberia being a member of the nation states that signed the ICC protocol. As a result of that, all of them come in a defensive posture and sometimes mislead TRC, thereby creating a situation of fallacy composition. In our political setting, we call it political conspiracy, lies. Some of the speakers came and said, in fact, the President pro tem uncle was ambushed by me, so as a result he went against me. Why must you lie on yourself? So I called Senator Johnson, I said, but why must you lie? I don't have an uncle that was in the army that was ambushed. So it's not correct. He said, oh, okay, I'm sorry, but he has said it now. Some of the speakers came, like Joe Wehyee, that we didn't know about. Came here, he said, Nyenabo was director of war. So being director of war, maybe you chairman of military wing or chief of staff. Because to be a director of war, then you must have that kind of position. And I remember Councillor Pierre asked that question to one of to Sekou Damadi Kone and Joe Bala, and I admire that. And then they said, we don't have anything called director of war in our organization. When I met him on Kerry Street, right opposite Aminata, he told me, my man, people told me to say it, so I got to say it. That's Joe Wehyee. And I have a recording for that. But against the law, you have to inform somebody before you record him. But I recorded him. See the contradictions in our history. But before we go to that, let's try to draw ourselves, as a student of political science, let's look at conflict. If we were tracing the origin of conflict, we must have come from 1822. From 1822 to 1847, 25 years of ACS rule. Prior to the independence of Liberia, there were two reasons, and those reasons brought in conflict. First, the people, the settlers, and other indigenous, because you have the Mambam, Basso, Day, and Gola, were the one that provided the land for the settlers. And then the settlers and those Basso, Day, and Gola wanted freedom. So that's the natural right that they fought for. The second one was, one of the boats, the commercial boat from the British colony Sierra Leone, landed in Grand Bassam. That boat is called Little Ben. Landed in Grand Bassam, and when it landed, they refused to pay custom taxes. So our custom people there arrested the boat and packed it. Stephen Allen Benson, a businessman at the time, he owned boat too that went to Sierra Leone. They call it John Say, that boat named John Say, S-E-Y-S. That boat went to Sierra Leone and were arrested. Reciprocity. When they arrested it, they charged the captain for slave trade and others, and sent to the higher court, the one we call the Supreme Court. The court found no magnitude and dismissed the allegation, and then free John Say and the crew members to come back to Liberia. Our foreign policy strategists decided, inclusive Joseph Jiggin Roberts, Hilary T.H. and others, decided saying, let's inform America, because they are where we came from. Mind you now, ACS was enacted into law in keeping with the congressional statute. If you look in the U.S. Congress, you'll see that ACS, there was a bill that was sponsored at the Congress that enacted ACS into law as a legitimate institution to come to Liberia. So Joseph Jiggin Roberts and others wrote They wrote US to inform US what British doing to our people. The US government decided, Washington decided to send the document to Britain. The reply of Great Britain was, Liberia is a philanthropic and experimental ground for free slaves. That document precipitated a request by Joseph Jenkins Rawls and others to seek an advice for a constitutional convention. The constitutional convention of 12 persons. If you look right behind you there, you see the sign of Samuel Benedict was the president. William Pratt was the Secretary General. If you look right behind you there. And this hall, no, the Baptist church, this Methodist Baptist, Providence Baptist Church here, is where they had a convention. July 26, 1847, the Constitution was adopted, thereby bringing Joseph Jenkins Rawls and others to state power. Conflict. You find out that at the time across the road where you had LURD Library was the executive mansion, and here was the building was smaller than this, was Capitol Building. This place was Capitol Building, and right across there the LURD Library was the executive mansion. From 1847, there were many conflicts that evolved. You look at the 1871 scenario of E.J. Raw, when he was dragged from here to jail because he went to London, and according to the report he got 500,000 loan. He, Anderson and others went, and then when they returned 135,000 went in the treasury. The rest of the money was used. So they had him dragged and sent him to prison. And according to one Bible cassette and Richardson, some said that he was killed on a ship because he had his coins, and then they have the scene by saying Wehyee killed Roy because the coin was heavy, so that he killed Roy. Others said that he was shot, yes, but he was brought back to jail and he died in jail. So the history there could not tell us what really happened. Conflict. The second conflict during Raw time was the light mulattoes and the dark skin. You know, at the time, 1869, when E.J. Raw when he won the election, 1870, Joseph Jenkins Rawls wanted to come back, started his own process, and then by 1871, Joseph Jenkins Rawls won his election too. There where you had a tenure of president from 2 years to 4 years, Senate representative 2 years to 4 years, senator from 4 years to 6 years. There where it came from. The first constitutional amendment. Now, conflict. A crisis situation came during Charles D.B. King. You remember the Fernanda Post scandal. This using people as slaves and, you know, hard labor, and they set up a complaint was filed. In fact, the Monrovia group and those that in the proximity of Monrovia decided to petition the legislature to have Charles D.B. King impeached. So the crisis had involved. At the same time, America sent in some experts, 3-member committee, they call it the Christie Committee, to investigate Charles D.B. King. Charles D.B. King was guilty of that scandal, thereby forcing Charles D.B. King to resign. Immediately after Charles D.B. King, Charles D.B. King and his vice president resigned, Alan Yancey. After they resigned, prior to their resigning, there were another constitutional, amendments that says that when the president and the vice president are out of office, the Secretary of State assumes, it's not the Speaker. because the cancellation of that came during William D. Coleman time, when Garrison W. Gibson succeeded as Secretary of State. That's the first one in 1900. The second one was Edwin Barclay. He succeeded Charles D.B. King to complete his term. When Edwin Barclay came in, you remember the Fernando Po crisis came from 1929 to 1934. When Barclay came in by 1936, you have the Southtown War crisis. Immediately after those events, other events occurred, but they were minute because you find out that those were disagreements, but they never evolved into crisis until Charles D.B. King, because the coming of E.J. Raw, the first two Whig parties, tenor bearer, and I remember Councillor Pierre Bou is aware of two Whig party formation, because he once served as chair in the late 70s of the women wing. Okay, but the women wing first before you became national elected chairman. Women wing first. I think you served on the women
wing of the national.
Yeah. Okay, 1980.
National elected chairman of the women wing.
Very good.
It was founded just came after the 1979 Basel Congress.
Yes.
So it was something new. I was the first elected by all the county, mostly the indigenous.
I'm aware of the history. If you want for us to go into detail with that, I will tell you. Yeah, I must appraise you for that. And conflict crisis situations begin to evolve. We saw conflict again when Topman, after Topman took over, 1944. In fact, during the period of Topman, Liberia the whole world was in crisis, because you're talking about World War II. And 18 days after the inauguration of Topman, you found out that Liberia declared war on Germany. 18 days. So just say from January 4th, 18 days. On the 22nd of January, Liberia declared war on Germany, because you know Topman is a protege of the West. So then he decided to make his points clear. This is the West, this is the East. I'm interested in the West. The position was very clear. He was not playing political diplomacy. So, crisis. 1948, Topman decided to send a bill to the legislature, thereby giving women right to vote. That was 1948. It did not go well with the men, because that was the first time women were allowed to vote. 1948 crisis and conflict. Then we had a law review. You know, Liberia Code of Law Review 1956, 57, 58. Councillor Pierre Bou is aware of that. Most of the statutes that we are standing on today, 1956, the cumulative supplements came 57 and 58. The vehicle traffic law, talking about serene and this, who should not carry serene and all of that. If you look in that book, you will find it. And conflicts got around. By 1979, crisis. Why? The indigenous political gurus felt that with the length of time and education that they have acquired, they have been suppressed, oppressed. Now people have been marginalized. The so-called progressives decided to coerce the minds of the indigenous people. Marcus Matthew was in the United States. He worked at the embassy, worked at the UN. Now as ambassador and a consulate. And then his father, his father was at finance. And then the money could not come quickly. And then he took some money to pay the staff. When time came, No money, so he ran back. When he ran back, he saw the system that was in place here. So he decided to join the wagon. So that's how backup came to fame. So instead of collecting the money to go now, the progressive says that, look, our people cannot be suppressed to the highest level. So then the progressive evolved. By 1980, let me be very exact with you, 1979, I was 16 years of age. All that you will hear from me will be from historical books. The short history of Liberia, Joseph Wehyee, the end of the First Republic, Bole, the Civil War, Ubote, the rise of autocracy in Liberia, Dr. Amos Sawyer, and others, Biomen Kase, Retraction, Nathaniel Retraction, and others. From 1979 to 1989, I'm sorry my witness is here because I was in school, from high school to college. They were up to February that I have to complete vacation time in college. So that period, I'm not too abreast with that period. I can only capture from historical books. But what I capture, what I conceptualized at a period, at that time, was that because prior to 1980, there were speculations. There were speculations that the military coup was imminent, but the senior members of the army were going to take over, and that Togo were preparing to go to, I think, Zimbabwe or so for a conference. And because of that, he decided not to go and see. So the progressive that were not in jail and other progressive gave the information that before the man leaves, the rest of the people will be executed. So then the action must be taken. I remember that some of the witnesses that came here took responsibility of the 1980 scenario where people were executed. They said, yes, we gave instruction to the army. Because you remember, at the time, it is not now that you develop a criteria of becoming a sergeant. But at the time, the chief of staff can make you a sergeant. It is only the president can make you a lieutenant, commission officer. So at the time, master sergeant has limited mental capacity to read government, to read politics, the art of the possible, and authoritative values, where values are distributed among those with power, and the power they talk about are education. They don't have. So the so-called progressive decided that yes, we have the chance now. But what made them to go short was that they have segmented political ideologies. African communism, socialism, capitalism, traditional communism, and all of that. So in less than 6 months, they broke away from each other. One taking their own group, another one involving their own group, another one involving another group. As a result of that, the military are confused. But the tactic that was used by those so-called progressives was that in order for a revolution to survive, you got to eat your own children. That was their tactic. So when they sit and call the commanding general or the chief of staff and say, look, or they call the head of state and say, look, they men won't overthrow you. In fact, they men thinking, we don't want an idea of the East. The Libyan issue here is a serious problem. The Cuban business is a serious business. Americans would not accept it. And when they started doing that, the capacity was not there to investigate, synthesize better. The revolution failed. By the time it entered 1985, we found out that, in fact, some started hinting those PRC members turned to INA that, look, even they put it in the constitution that they will not prosecute you people. As soon as the surveillance government take over, they will prosecute you. They had to run to Shoplin and say, my people, what do I do? In fact, the people will prosecute us, so let me change to surveillance now and protect us. He went back. So then, the 1985 elections came and we know the result. Others say LAB won, others say no, NPFL won. By 1989, prior to 1989, other situations came that evolved conflict and finally pushed to crisis. May I be very quick to tell you that in politics there is a difference between tribe and government, because tribes are created by God, governments are created by men. I can't tell you why I'm crying, I cannot, but I can tell you the first government in Liberia and how it was created. I can tell you who was the first Chief Justice of Liberia, Samuel Benedict. Who was the first Attorney General, Dixon Brown. Who was the first, they call it Secretary of State. I say Hilary T.H. Secretary of Treasury, Stephen Allen Benson. I can name those people. But to tell you what makes you a parliament, I don't know. No historical philosopher have come to tell us that this is what made this man, except for religious background, in which the fundamental thinkers believe that don't go along with reason and logic, just believe. So it means that some said that they were building some kind of tower, everybody was speaking the same language and building one tower, and then the tower almost getting to heaven, and then God decided to break the tower, everybody came and they start speaking different languages. But we, the fundamental thinkers, think that that's a myth, because it develops no reason. Now let's come to 1990. If we can easily give a distinction between tribe and government, then why are we rushing to say that Samuel Doe led government, the NPFL led government of 1985 to 1990 was a crown government? Because the Chief Justice of that government was not from Grand Jide. The Chief Justice was from Lima, Emmanuel Balaze. Some cabinet ministers, Emmanuel Buya, River says, you know, Basso River says, that connection. Otelo Gonga, all of Mata Sandoro Bele, and all of these people. But the war, when the war entered, Butu, the first person to die was a crown man, gay immigration officer. He was killed in Lukatu. And what were they looking for? They were looking for crown. They are looking for army people. And how do they find the army people? The NPFL, they have the techniques, because when you wear boots for some time, the mark is there. Then they're looking for the Mandigos. Then they're looking for former officials of government. So to escape that trap was difficult. So they have the myth that they were smelling those categories of people. And as soon as they started coming, the crown decided to take a defensive posture. When they were coming towards overthrowing the government, they were moving in Grand Jide. People died. I will give you instances because you have the historical facts with you. You did some of your work. But as I move towards the early 90s to the mid 90s, I will give you the historical facts. Some that went to Sierra Leone, the Mandingo and clans and other mixed crew, they decided to join forces and organize ULEMO to come. Those who organized ULEMO and served as chairpersons and whatnot appeared here. They must have given you some information. When it came, they broke apart. Policy differences because of the intellectual class decided to intervene. Because the more that the two tribes hold together, it was impossible to break down such system. It broke down. You are ULEMO J, you are ULEMO K. But let me be very quick to tell you that I was at the National Bank of Liberia, so I was never a ULEMO member. You can call David K. Vinton. He teaches at the MBA program at the University of Liberia. He's a member of the board of directors of the Central Bank. You can call Tambakoli, you can call Alfonso Blamo. All of these people, he was my first manager, they can tell you. And there are other facts that you have. 1990, let me tell you again. When they had this volunteer army and all of that, and I just come from school and got my employment. Plato developed the classes of people. Plato said there are three classes, the controlling factors. He said there are three classes. Those of strength are the workers. Those of courage join the army. The philosopher kings are the thinkers. They provide society with guidance. So a young student from Cardinal University College at that time, I'm joining the intellectual class. I was afraid of bullet. I had a frustration in my mind, but I was afraid. Not that I was not brave, but the way hunters and other people coming from counties and all of that with Marco Tele then to assist the process, I was not prepared. And you can ask any crime, any Liberian, anybody who was in the army to find out whether you saw me holding AK or wearing army uniform one day. No. I was from the barrack to work. Because the bank closes, it closed July 16 when they hit Oro, and then it opens December of the same 1990, the National Bank. So the 91, 92 and all of that, I was at the bank doing my training, going to Nigeria, Gambia and other places to acquire my education. Then we came to the 90s. The former president, Moses Blah, in the 90s he was, and he admitted here, he was the commander of the southeastern region, based in Wehyee. A massacre took place in Nyenabo, in Due town. Today is a village. Over 50 houses are there. People were killed. Massacre, completely. Today is a village of less than 5 houses. 1994, we remember, in Babylon town, a massacre took place under the command of Gonda. I don't know your other name because I was in Monrovia. In 1996, in Bazon, deep in Bazon, Bako town, Bazon district. In Bako town, a massacre took place. You're talking, when we say massacre now, you should think about over 300 to 400 people. They call them, you know, their nearby towns all came together and they called them for a meeting. They said, look, we're not here to kill crown people. So we just want to inform you people that we all must work together. So you have over 10 towns that are connected to Jaudi. They call all of them to a council meeting. For escapee to be there, then maybe 2 or 3. The massacre, people. In fact, what I spoke of when I said the chairman, we were all in Loking Town. I was with my brother-in-law, my late sister Cecilia Nyenabo, with Lieutenant Robert. Lieutenant Robert was killed by INPFL in Loking Town. He knows that. Right in your own yard. As soon as he put his hair out, I think they buried him right in front of his house. They killed him. The man did nothing. My sister Cecilia too, to run away and go to Ivory Coast, he was killed in Tuzon. Because they were hesitant. Oh, they said go to the port, in Dao. So you who go, then it means that, you don't let go. So people were hesitant to go. People were killed. Houses burned. Some of you visited Tuzon, you saw those structures. Those structures did not remain. Those were well furnished and other things. They massacred people. The Crown people in Monrovia decided to go in a defensive position for safety because all roads are blocked. In fact, those that were taken 1990 by the INPFL on a base. First, when Doe went to Freeport with 64 men, less than 10 persons survived. In the end, Quenu was standing there when that happened. The next day, I was in a barrack. ECOMog sent 2 trucks and said that for safety, people were getting inside. I almost got inside. When people were sent to the and others from housing authority, they got in that truck. They went to ECOMog base. They put them in a container. About 2 of the survivors in my office right now, Alfonso Bay, he did mass communication at University of Liberia, Golden City and Golden Wright. He did health science at Legon University. They are in my office. When Prince Johnson went in the containers and collected, they collected Saint Tode and others. The first group they carried, they were massacred at the INPFL base. The second group they carried, luckily for Alfonso Bay and others, Colonel Gay of the Gambian Contingent Command, he went in there because he heard the news. When he went there, he insisted that Prince Johnson should turn the people over, how they were returned. Some of them were returned because those that were not killed at the time. I remember 1990, in July, around July 28, when INPFL had taken over the central part of Monrovia. My friend and brother, the late Bangali Sila, and his father, Omer Sila, the daughter of the commissioner here, were taken by INPFL from their home as he came from mosque. They were killed. I remember 1990. Stephen Yakerson, he's not from Grand Jide, he's not a Mandingo man. He was taken from Lopa. He was taken from his home and taken to Basso, killed by the NPFL. I remember 1990. Charles Coffey Sr. Charles Coffey was the Grand Crew Chairman of the NDPL. He was collected Oro and then he was killed. I remember 1990. Pato Bido, Pay, Doyen, David Doyen, and the rest of the people. They are from Lima. But because they were secretary generals and members of the government, they were killed. I remember 1990, when even Jackson F. Doe, David Bolet, and others were massacred by the NPFL. As the revolution defines its objective, only to massacre. Let me be very quick to tell you, as we were in the barracks, history told us that the Lutheran massacre was done by AFL. Because eyewitnesses left from there. It was done by AFL. That's what we were told from witness and from history. People left from there and they told us, AFL. But the actors, it was difficult to ask, who are those? You ask, you are gone. So, but I know Margot Taylor was there. I remember the UN compound was entered by AFL. Because when it went by, we got the news. I remember the cattle massacre. Cattle camp massacre in Habe was done by NPFL, the Marine Forces of Nathan Gay, Rambo, and the rest, under the command of Charles Taylor. I remember the cattle camp massacre was done by NPFL. At the time, you have the interim government in place of Amos Soy. I remember that. Let's come to the scenario of the April 6th. April 6th was the result of this infiltration, Haji Kroma and Roosevelt Johnson conflict, and it degenerated in such a way that other factors it developed with Amayulu and William Kai and this and that, and somebody died on 19th Street, a cousin of Roosevelt Johnson and Amayulu, because they were cousins. They are cousins. And the government issued the order that Roosevelt Johnson should turn himself over. When Roosevelt Johnson went to decided that he cannot, on Johnson Road, there was a move from the ATU under the command. Charles Taylor gave the command to have Johnson arrested. When by the evening hours, we all got to run away to the barracks. I can tell you, April 6th. And quietly, I remember when I saw my old man too running away, running in the barrack right before the MP quarter there, you know, and sitting down. Old man, the commissioner, Conan, if he had stayed on Johnson Road, he would have been dead too. So he had to run away. He was in the barracks. And I can tell you, approximately 1,000 Crown people died. We're talking about in a fence where people shooting from all angles for over 2 weeks. Over 1,000 Crown people died. Over 200 non-Crown people died. Mandingos, Pele, Basso, Grebo, Loma, and others died in the barrack. Then we come to September 18. The scenario of September 18 was the same invasion on Roosevelt Johnson. Roosevelt Johnson had to flee, going to the MSA, and it happened around 5 something. I ran to the embassy first. Anybody who had gone to the embassy that time, you are seeing one RL11, the white polo of my car. I slept in there before, and because the news was coming that they will arrest Roosevelt Johnson, so you look at history. So I run away. I slept there. The next day it happened, and Roosevelt Johnson then passed by the way of UN Drive, right to the reception place at the embassy. They were standing there talking with the ambassador to give authorization for them to enter. Joe Tate and others from the ATU, well armed to their teeth, moved in, and the house right opposite, I was in the house, unfinished building, right opposite there, I was there. And Joe Tate entered with a jeep coming from the Mercenary Craft way and just entered there and called the ambassador. But the ambassador, because they were hiding, they were standing behind the walls, right to the reception place. Johnson then was standing behind the wall. So the ambassador never wanted for Joe Tate to see the people. So he decided to go on a car road. So he met Joe Tate, he was talking with Tate, and said that, and Tate wanted Johnson then right there. And then he was insisting, he said, let me contact State Department, and so and we'll get back to you. And when he met Joe Tate, turned around, ahoy, he said, when I leave your fire, the open spirited fire. I remember survivors of that incident, Amos Lincoln, if he's here, Amos Lincoln is one of those. George Jordan, those who force their way, because you know the thing had to turn before you enter. You can't just force it. So there where you have Madison Williams and Roosevelt Johnson's son killed right there. Some other people were wounded. And immediately in the evening, they started running up people with Glade them and Umitu City, Dewey, and the rest of the people. The 14 persons, the night of September 19 night, it was C.O. Singbe. He was the MP commander. I don't know your other name. Because at the time when you ask for real name, then you have a problem. I was hiding myself with Moses Wright. That means we'll ask for what your first name and second name. But his name was C.O. Singbe. He used to have a Land Rover, green Land Rover Jeep. Then the mortician. One guy, he was the mortician there. But I think, I remember, they say he just testified recently here. And Samuel Vanny, there were 3. They went in there and collected people. 14 persons they carried. They said that Taylor needed the blood, so there should be no shooting. We were standing right near the mosque and the mall. Moses Wright, myself, and Washington Galley. We were standing right there. It was around 12 midnight. We were standing right there, and Omisu City and Dewey crying. Dewey saying that, Samuel Vanny, please, if that's my wife's business, then you must take her. But I got 11 children. And they don't have money, nothing. So if I die now, it's something, I beg you, brother. When you're crying, they forced them in the jeep. 14 persons in the jeep. They carried them because they said that Taylor needed the blood. Those people were taken away, taken to shuffling. Before shuffling, according to information, their throats were cut to get the blood out and sent to Taylor. And when it went back, by 3 o'clock, Samuel Vanny went back to Moses Wright. Moses Wright is in Pendle right now, in Philadelphia, between Philly and Delaware, in Pendle. He's there right now. And when he went back, in the night, Samuel Vanny drove in the yard, Moses Wright yard. We all jumped. He said, yo, man, don't be afraid. We just from cutting their throat and we send the blood already, so we're not going to do anything. So Moses, you vexed? Moses said, no, chief. The people that you're taking order from the commander-in-chief, then why will get vexed for? If he say yes, I vex, he finish. That was September 18. A lot of people died. They were collected one by one. I stay here because I left the country 1st October 1997 when the late Thomas Gay died in Guinea from pressure. And they brought the body, I think it's buried at Center Street. And my sister married Thomas Gay, and then my sister brought the body from Guinea. And then she convinced me to leave. We went with Guinea Airways. By 1998, January 29, Nessie Doe convinced me with the invitation of Charles Taylor that Nessie Doe will get her property and this and that. So they called my attention in Guinea and talked to my sister for me to come back. That's how we came, January 1998, January 29. I think Taylor's birthday is January 29. Yeah, so we came back that day. They sent her to Hotel Africa, 3rd floor. If you had to be Taylor, she would tell you. Because two people were on the 4th floor, we were on the 3rd floor. And Chucky were on the 4th floor too. That time they were forming the ATU. And I stayed here 1998 until September 18 met me. Other than that, I would have said according to history. So I stayed here 1998, 99. After September 18, I stayed here up to January 8, 1999. When a friend or brother, Demetrius Zua, I think he sits before you there in the green trouser, left Abidjan, and Nessie sent him to come and collect me because when people were calling on her that the man you took to Liberia, he hasn't come back. People say he died and all of that. And my mother and my sisters and my nieces all were preparing for the States. So he has to take that risk. He passed by the way of Luka Tuo and came and met me in Moses Wright compound. Yeah, in the barracks. And then, soon in the morning, on the 9th of January, we decided to take that gamble. got in taxi from Monrovia straight to Lucatuo. And when we reached Lucatuo, it was 6:30. And remember, so we had to sleep. But luckily for her, one crown girl was there. Remember what her name again? Rebecca Sua. Now, and this girl, they didn't know that she's a crown girl. She went with G2. So when she met us right there, and the people said, you can't cross. In fact, you bring your document. She collected all our documents. She said that my brother there. That's also Basel people. She lodged us in the place she's stopping and put some people, gave them some money and put the opposite room, put her in that room, so she would monitor us. So she was there with her boyfriend, and then they came, they say, oh, some people came, you know, the commander, G2 commander said some people came but one screen, then he said that my brother, then you screen. We were sitting with them. They brought palm wine and all of that, and they started drinking that night. And then in the morning, she decided, she said, your leave document business. That's how we cross. I look at you. My only time to see look at you. Went to Binta, from Binta to this place, Danande, then we took a bus to Abidjan. Spent 3 months in Abidjan. In fact, I was called by Samuel Thompson. At the time, Samuel Thompson was working with Citibank in Abidjan as the vice president for credit and marketing. Samuel Thompson is in town, and he wanted to employ me, but then I was too afraid because the relationship with Charles Taylor and Cote d'Ivoire was cordial. So then you can't do that. So then I decided convincing Nyenabo to go to Guinea to join my people. So I went to Guinea, met my mother, my sister, and the rest of the people. How Nyenabo evolved into this process now? When I went to Guinea, there were institutions that were already there. They got a JCLL, I know, Justice Coalition of Liberation, Liberia, something like that. Then they got ODL, that I already entered Vonyema and went by. Then they had New Horizon of Johannes Land, then Thomas Yaya and the rest of the people. Then in Sierra Leone, they already got Union of Democratic Forces of Liberia, of Vamakane, Subuwu, and the rest of the crew. So when we got in there, there were 4-5 organizations. Group of frustrated people hearing on daily basis that Taylor killing your people in there. So then, it should be April or May when George Dewey, Amos Lincoln, Joe Bala, and Paul Thomas, left Nigeria. Because September 18, when they were taken from here, Freetown, Nigeria. So they left Nigeria. They have formed an organization called LURD, Liberians United for Reconciliation and Democracy. But let me just give you a classical understanding of this matter. LURD was a movement, and the way LURD was structured, it resembles a political party because of, confidence crisis. So you find out that LURD had the National Executive Committee, that members will be elected. Then it has the Elder Council between the military and the National Executive Committee. They have Elder Council. Then it has the military headed by the Chief of Staff. How do you select? And then LURD has in your objective that one, no former warring faction must be head of LURD. No former warring faction. Two, that LURD, immediately after pressurizing Charles Taylor to leave, when Charles Taylor leaves, there shall be a national conference. One, to establish a transitional government. And those who participated in the ring and files of LURD are now eligible. Two, and that the Truth and Reconciliation Commission will be established, but that transitional commission will be 2 years. So I remember when people went to Ghana, I was in Freetown. I already left LURD, but we'll come to that. And they said TRC will be established, and the transitional government that come in will be for 2 years. Then a new straight came from LURD objective. So how do we have the conference? George Dewey then came, they sold the idea, they went to Sierra Leone, they sold the idea. They said there should be a national conference inviting people from America all over. They invited people all over the world. Some people came from America, Europe, Africa, West Africa, all over. And we all went to the conference. People campaigning, the other political parties, campaigning for elections. People campaigning. I campaigned for the position of Secretary General of the party to help to hold the secretariat. And the NEC has nothing to do with the exception of only the chairman. The NEC has nothing to do with the military. So the NEC is there to do a policy, attract people of the objective and sell the ideas. So when I campaigned, I won 2 other persons. Mohammed Yamande won. I think won Gaya family and Subu and some other people. Subu and Fama Kane then became vice chairman. Paul Thomas won George Dewey in the election. Soko V. Sako won as Deputy Secretary General. And Kutubu Fofana, Deputy Secretary General, he won too. And I think Joe Bala won as Assistant Secretary General. But we came setting up the objective. When we all went back to Guinea, sat down to sell the idea because you already have existing organizations on the ground. You got to sell the idea, calling people to sit down and discuss and all of that. There were others that were connected with officials, top officials of the government. You don't know them. So they were the key people. They say, well, oh man, your objective is fine, everything all right. But we need the leadership. That your election, this and this, you're a political party, then you're going to tell them I have election. You say that political party. So then, the military that was formed, newly formed now, Sebu Damadi Kone touched the military by convincing them the issue of resolution. The resolution thereby making Sebu Damadi Kone chairman and dissolving all the positions. So Joe Bala immediately took over. He taking over was Sebu Kone who just appointed him. They were not in that resolution. The only thing they dissolved all positions and made Chaido vice chairman and made Sebu Kone chairman. Period. So Sebu felt that he can work with Joe Bala, better than me. So he decided to take Joe Bala. When I raised the issue that the objective for LURD was being violated, Sebu Kone informed the officials of Guinea that I do not want the objective for LURD to be achieved by removing Taylor. I was in prison, and I think some of the speakers came here. They jailed me for 10 days without seeing light. And immediately after that, when I was free by Ashadem, they called me. I decided first to test the water. I went to the Conakry Refugee School. They call it Conakry Industrial College. I was teaching economics and history, accounting. I taught for almost 6 months. But then there were some skirmishes. Every 5 minutes they say, that man, the way he in the classroom there, he pushing the people's mind and this and this. So I left. I went to the NGO, the Christian Community Care, as administrator. Less than no time, they went in the house. I was very, very lucky. They went in the house and collected all my people that there and jailed them. I escaped. That's how I ran to Sierra Leone. I stayed in Sierra Leone until they had to go to Ghana. So what all happened in Ghana, those who participated did not see me there because I was never in Ghana. So, and in fact, when I came back to Monrovia, the job that was offered me as Controller General of Liberia was not appropriate, it was not a portion to learn in Ghana. If you look at the structure, they gave it to you. It was only Chaido, Jackson, Sekou, other intervention that came, they may help the process to put LURD together that time, and then people so and your J him, so at least you talk to Lucini Camara to gain small thing. That how try as much as possible for me to get that appointment from Judy Bryan as Controller General of Liberia. Immediately after that, elections came and we contested and won as Senior Senator of Grand County. So they made the major things here, I see some of the reasons for which people tend to be indefensive and create fallacy composition, lies, is because when they hear perpetrator and less perpetrator and consult lawyers and say, look, because they say you violated human rights and do this and that, they go in defensive. Even if you say, why your name is Isaac Nyenabo, I'll say, no, I'm not Isaac Nyenabo, I'm George Wehyee. I'll change my name right there because I'm scared to be perpetrator or less perpetrator. You see. So I have made some efforts. I did not know that, you were going to call me. But immediately after, Senator Johnson spoke here, and he gave some information that was incorrect. So I decided writing TRC. I have the copy of the letter. That I want to share my experience here, because Joseph Guano taught me history at Cottington. And I'm doing political science as an MA candidate in political science. And I have interest in fundamental thinking. So I want to participate in these kind of intellectual exercises that require rewriting the history of Liberia. But it required an exercise of truthfulness. Because that's the reason why Plato said that, please, look for the philosopher kings. They will help you because they know what is true and correct. Some of the people will come after passing TRC into law and having all of its merits. What is required of us is to strengthen TRC. By the time you call them, they say, no, I'm not going to TRC. But oh man, in Ghana, who forced you to organize TRC now? Who forced you to pass that law, to add it into law? So when last week I made several calls, yeah, only you people I did not call, but the other officers, the investigator, SUA, and the rest of the people, I made few calls. I want to appear because I come and go for my agricultural break. If I'm named there or not, before I look, me appear in the newspaper. And when I appear in the newspaper, because other people see people on this collective gift syndrome, it's bad for Liberia. By the time they see you as a crime man, they feel that you are dangerous. That's not an issue. You have to review its intellectual capacity. Because Liberia needs the intelligentsia today. You don't need people who, by hook or crook, that can ascend to powers. No. You need the intelligentsia. You need the family of the liberties to guide society. So we made several calls to appear before we look in Democrat. They are all wanted. They have my photo with Benjamin Yetin and others. Can you imagine this story? Some of us are trained by Congress, by most parliaments around the world. I went to the European Union Parliament, the British Parliament. I got over 10, 15 friends at the US Congress. If you call David Price, you call Donald Payne and the rest of the crew there, they will tell you, I'm very trained. If you have the US embassy family here, I got friends. I talk to them. They talk to me. To see my name wanted, that's what caused me to react that same day. And I want to appreciate your effort. And I want to appreciate your clarification that you made in the papers, saying that no, we have categories, and even some of the people, we did not write them. Yes, you did not write me. I only received a letter to appear last night at 9:30. And when I received the letter, it was like Christmas Day for me. Because there were some issues that I feel that we can all, interact together. So they say, well, Senator, you think that the time is not too short for you? I say, too long. 9 o'clock last night, I saw it. I said, too long set for me. Because what is in your mind is in your mind. Human capital development is the essence of human perfection. The mere fact that you belong to that class, there is no way that you say, let me get myself prepared after 3 weeks before I go talk. Then it means that you want to be tutored by somebody. So I want to thank you very much. And I will say that though I mentioned that I received the communication last night, it is in no way tend to, push me off balance. No. I just saying that I don't been waiting for it, and then I have the time because other speakers will come and call me and say, I say, Nyenabo, you know, in Liberia, because of the inequality gap, everybody got to understand that. The inequality gap, if you look at the employment ratio, then you see a young person, a 44 years old person, is President Pro Tem, is targeted. You as chairman, you are targeted. All of you here, because they say the people making enough money. They are making money and they are not doing anything. In fact, when they come, they will attack you first. Because they say you're making money. That's the same thing. We the lawmakers are making money. Because you see, every Maslow says self-actualization. They got the psychological and physiological needs. They say after one, the other one emerges. And this self-actualization, one wants to be what others are, or what one is. She taught universities in America, and I believe maybe from Pennsylvania or from Maryland. Sure University. Thank you very much. That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. Because I did some work. You know, I like this research thing, so I did some work and then I captured that. So that's why I want to give you that recognition. So as a result of that, people tend to, even if I don't intend to go into this reasoning, but those who were not born before Jesus Christ came, are they, and those who stood when Jesus Christ was crucified, are they going to be judged the same? I don't know. Before Muhammad came, there were others that existed. But when Muhammad came and spread the gospel and said, look, do this, and develop the 5 pillars, those who refused to live by the 5 pillars, and he decided to use the traditional approach to force you to understand that yes, it's good for you. And those who existed prior to Muhammad coming, are they going to be judged the same? I don't believe so. Because I come from fundamental school of thought. I didn't know. But because of our participation in government, people come here, they want to make names, they want to make airlines. But did you see me with arm before? Did you see me wearing arm before? A uniform to go on front line? I don't think that all of the collections that you have done from counties will tell you that I ever entered the bush with arm. No way. I don't think so. But because of our participation in government, they create revolution. You put 3 crays in one bowl right now. If one try to get up to escape death in a bucket, the other one will say, where are you going? Oh, you maneuver going, it will bring you down. So every one of us must die inside here. That's it. That's the concept in Liberia. In order to give those who have the intellect, the ability to continue their quest for learning and expand their knowledge, they will fight you to the last. Some will come, let me just come to gossip. Some will come and say, look, the chairman of the TRC, you don't know that the people that were towing the old casket, they are cartoon and old casket from University of Liberia, how the man will be TRC. Look at. The other one will come and say the steward. You don't know that steward, that the people that were in Blackberry that went to Kanka. The other ones will say that 1992, the association of ULEMO leadership, 1994, 92, 93, 94, the association of ULEMO leadership, in which Haji Kroma was the head. And looking at that tribal connection and looking at the proximity of Chief Kapuma Kone, right next door to the ULEMO headquarters on Clay and Johnson Street intersection there, near the barracks. Chief Kapuma Kone was an executive. Some of you have heard those things. But we have not been able to provide the tangible evidence from the school of thought I come from. There is no formal documentary evidence. We have heard all of that. But we have not been able to substantiate that. Because I saw you, Chairman, in Loki Town at the time, I didn't see you running with casket in a yard. So how do I say it now? But I'm told to say it. But why do I do so? So I want to thank you very much. I'm sorry that I went into, some details. So the issue of the Liberian civil conflict and crisis involved far back. It started changing from conflict to crisis, from crisis to conflict, from conflict to crisis, and crisis to conflict. So that's how it is. So I thank you very much. And I will now entertain questions from you as we interact.
You prefer standing or you would like to?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Witness, for your presentation, which gave an historical overview of our crisis, changing forms from one conflict to another, and then emerging into a crisis. And then from the late 80s, you gave your personal experiences of our conflict period, 1990 up to 1985, 1989 when the first bullet was shot, and all the experiences that memos of your King's tribesmen had to honor good just because they were of a particular tribe, apparently. And beyond that, you did speak a lot philosophically and politically on our situation, the dynamics of our situation, all of that. And then you spoke to your personal role as an organizing member of the LURD, and then you resigned subsequently because of policy differences, and you had to flee Guinea and went into Sierra Leone.
I was forced out.
You were forced out of LURD because of policy differences.
After jailing, I had to run away.
I want to thank you very much for your presentation, and at this stage, commissioners will ask questions. I would just want to preface questioning with just a few brief queries with respect to, especially, when did you leave LURD?
LURD?
Yeah.
LURD was founded 1999, I think so. 1999.
And when did you leave? When were you forced out?
I left Conakry 2002. Yes, 2002. Because I was teaching Conakry Industrial College. From there with Christian Community Care as administrator. And then after I left from jail now, so when I look at it, who they look up for me now, and they were about to, they arrested some of the people from my house, took them in jail. I have to leave.
More specifically, when did you really disassociate with LURD?
2002.
2002. Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Connor?
Thank you, Mr. Witness. I want to thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
And you have given us some historical backgrounds, and you have also helped to define what is conflict and what is crisis. We want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
And also to thank you for telling us the role you play and how you were hoisted from LURD. For me, I have no question, but just to thank you for your willingness to come to testify and give us your side. You know, there's a provision in the Act. I can't tell you because you are one of those who adopted that law.
I adopted the extension of the law.
The extension.
Because the law was adopted in 2005.
Okay, in that act, there's a provision for exoneration.
Yeah.
When you are accused falsely and you feel that you need to clarify that fact, it is your prerogative to come and testify. And I think this is what you have done. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Witness, I'm Commissioner Pearl Brown Bull. I want to say thank you for coming, because not only are we mandated to look at a historical period from 1979 to 2003, we can go before. And although the mandate says 2003, but there's a provision in that same TRC Act that gives us the authority or the power for institutional reforms, to make recommendation for institutional reform.
Yes.
To sustain, when we form this peace, when we've made our recommendation for justice or reparation, for amnesty or recommendation for prosecution, we must also be able to make recommendation for institutional reform.
Yes.
Our unitary state of government have 3 branches: the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive. That's what the government is of the people, for the people, and by the people. But though we are under the umbrella of the 3 branches, the conflict in this country was caused from what we've heard here from the 3 branches of government under which our people lived. You at this time in one of the branches, the legislature, you one of those who are combating the highest ranking officer, official. When we opened here, June 22nd, when we started this hearing,
Yeah.
February, it was before February. The president of Liberia, who has 1 branch, called on all government officials to participate in the process of the TRC and asked them to come. Although she apologized for past government acts, but probably after hearing the omission, commission, malfeasing and misfeasing that was committed during the period, I'm sure she has agreed to come back. But you from the legislature to come today, really, it's a good day in the history of this country. And for us, the TRC, and for all those cynics out there who taking this thing for a joke, that for someone like you to don't take it for a joke, I can say we really not coming under the rule of law.
Very good.
To realize that this country is not ruled by men of guns, but is ruled and will be ruled by the rule of law.
Thank you very much.
Now, it's in the same light that the TRC Act has certain provisions. And sitting on this TRC, we have committed our oath. If we took our oath before those who came here and took the oath on the Bible and Quran to execute the mandate of the TRC Act. One part said that you must come and tell the truth. And under the law, when you swear on oath and you lie, they call it under the law perjury. Perjury.
That's true.
And it's a criminal offense. And we have a magistrate, I understand he's sick. But those who have committed perjury under this act, and this way, when people come and lie, You hear this father's story, come back and tell us.
Thank you.
Now, two things I want to go into before going here. Where you stated that Prince Johnson, member of the INPF, former member of INPF, who also is your colleague senator, that when he appeared before us on an oath, he said that your uncle was ambushed, trying to justify some of the reason why certain things were done. And you say that's a lie.
I don't have an uncle.
So on our oath, Prince Johnson lied to us. So he's subject to perjury. I hope, and that is the law. Thank you for telling us that. And you said you queried him on that. Joe Wehyee came here and he said that you were director of war. Because just as you said, when they talk, I write down. You see you talking, I writing. Not just taking what you wrote in here, but I'm writing the question. And I asked him that. So besides seeing it, I asked for clarification. And he said yes. Now, you said he told you that the people told him to say so.
Yes.
You see that?
And Damandi Kone said there was no position of director of war here.
Oh,
Joe Bala said it here too.
Joe Bala said
yeah, the Secretary General. Somebody asked him the question and he said no position of such kind. And you can ask anybody that came from Guinea.
So
that even not member of LURD that
Joe
came from Guinea,
Wehyee
asked for director of war, whether it ever existed.
The TRC Act also said that we should provide an environment where accused and accuser can come together for reconciliation for the truth. So you say this on Prince Johnson and Joe Wehyee, and if this is true that you're saying, they have the opportunity, but this is perjury, and we take note of that.
Okay, please, before you go further, let me just give you my family history. Small, I'll just use 2 minutes.
Thank you.
To give you a foundation.
Everything got a history.
Yeah, because there are people here. My father died 1968. I born 1964. My father was in the Liberia Frontier Force. He joined the Frontier Force 1920, 1936. He left the Frontier Force, old soldier, and then he died at the age of 70. My uncle, who next to my father, he died at the age of 80. Nyenabo. He died in 1985, December 24th. Nyenabo, a grave is in Tucson right now. Before entering Tucson, you will see a grave there, a name there. My youngest uncle died in the Côte d'Ivoire 1994. Peter Nyenabo, they call him Teacher Nyenabo. So anybody who comes from our region and you say Teacher Nyenabo, they know him. My uncle was a classroom teacher. He's the first person in our clan to open school, 1953 up to 1980. He was still in the classroom. He died 1994 in Petit Gigo in La Côte d'Ivoire. His grave is there right now. So no, I don't have any other uncle again who ever went in the army and then was ambushed. I can't lie on people. I would not do that.
And thank you very much. People can't deny what they said because you see here, we taking everything besides writing is recorded.
Yeah.
Then we got independent TV camera here too. So nobody can come and say I didn't say it. Like long time.
Yeah.
We got it documented. And all we do go back to our record on that day and we hear it. Not only people tell we hear it.
Yeah.
So even if they take one thing, each one of us got a computer with it. So we check that out and we take note of that. Secondly, people coming and people telling them to say things. But I'm not here to compliment you before they say, oh, you're giving special privilege to a witness. But this morning, during a traditional religious segment, institutional hearings, our old sage and sheikh, the reigning sheikh, gave us a definition of an educated person. First, if you get old enough, you live long enough, you become educated because you know through experience and wisdom.
Yes.
If you travel enough, you will become educated because you will see things, you will hear things, and you will learn things. You become educated. and the book knowledge, what you read and go to school formally. Now, I've observed, and those who in radio land, because when they put it on the air, I said Nyenabo coming, President Pro Tem or the Senate, I show everybody listening to hear us give it to you and you give it to someone else. But I can say, sitting here, for those who didn't see you, you spoke extemporaneously. That a bookman talk there, but for the layman, you spoke with all the paper, although you wrote the paper, your 4-page paper, by observing you. You gave all the history, all those different dates, all those time. Just talking. You talk about Kingstown, the war, or writing it down. That shows, from chic definition, we can wonder whether or not you educated, because you say you travel all over, you met with the cream de la cream, the knowledge people. You 44 years old. But if you look at the age for which people live in this country and the gray hair, the experience, I can even consider you an old man now. Even you feel you young.
Thank you.
For the position you held, is a young position.
Yeah, thank you.
And you went to school. You know, good thing you talk this. Because you say student of political science, but to those who thought that you just come by chance. Because many of the people who in government, but before 2006 and prior, they held position because of faction, because of association, because of other reasons. And I categorize all of them as come by chance people. And maybe and by affiliation you got that controller job by being part of LURD, but you say how you got it. But you were qualified for that position because you went to school, you taught, you know the book, you know the figures, so you didn't just go there to maybe collect money, put it on your pocket. If you know how to do it, you know how to balance a book. So you will not come by chance, and you demonstrated it here because you spoke extemporaneously and with knowledge of our society, the coming, what happened. Another point you raised, for those who have been coming and looking for justification not to come or not to accept, as some said, they will not accept the decision of the TRC because their tribe not represented. You talk about tribe, who make up tribe and who make up government. But you were able to identify here that if they talk about crime, people not represented because they were part of the conflict. You sat here and you are brave enough to show all your association, affiliation, connection with us sitting here.
But a little before you there is from Grand
I'm coming to tell the people who didn't
from
even hear
Grand
you think. Almost Sila, Commissioner.
She's from Grand if you are not told you people.
That's why sometimes Bishop say, why you talk one time? Umo Sila was born in Grand Jide.
She's from Grand Jide.
Umo Sila went to school and graduated from AGM in Grand Jide. Or educated person who can speak and understand what we're doing. Umo Sila met you in Cottington College and graduated. So, there's somebody now who more Grand Jide than some of the people who crossed the border after 1980 and identifying themselves to be Grand Jide. You see, so we got people here who can represent the interests of Grand Jide objectively.
Yes, yes.
And thank you for coming to recognize that and feel that you can sit and identify her, and she has a right to recuse herself or not to ask you questions. She knows you very well. I can give you my dark shades, put it on. Don't look at your face and ask the question because you know you more than us. So, you talk about a chairman. I'm sure behind Nukuta, he looked, I don't know whether he played football to kick line. You identify. So nobody can say he was behind a house there, so that only gave you privilege. You talk about Sheik. You talk about me, you knew me recently, but you had done your background check on me.
Yes.
To the extent to know my external and interior thing. I even work with Doe in the INA as an interim member of the Interim National Assembly. That, and in fact, before that, I wrote the Constitution. One part I can clarify because, and it's true because you gave me a history on why, when Doe then became military people why he wanted to become president.
Yeah.
Because he felt that if we just lead this thing, the people who come in now, the civilian people, will want to prosecute us. That's what we want to know when we say the root causes of the war, the conflict. We don't just want to say what happened, but we want to know and find out the reason why things happen. And I can say to you, I was on the the 86th Constitutional Assembly. There's a provision in the transitional period that they made sure they put it there that those who serve in the PRC government, the action is something that people cannot question that. So they made sure.
They say transitional provision.
Yeah.
I think that chapter 11.
So they made sure before they went for election to close down everything, to take the guns away, that something was put in there for their protection. You know, but the Supreme Court has started making decision on that, and I think we at the TRC can get around that, because you know that provision, but to show that they secure themselves. And self-preservation is the first law of nature. So nothing wrong with that. Other people can query it. Now, thank you very much. Let me ask you little questions.
Okay.
Thank you for coming, because you talk about rumors. You say you wrote to come, but definitely I have been asking, requesting for you to come. We don't talk all what we do in our inner circle, but you are one of those who are citing that wanted you to come. Because I heard that, and you can ask the question, how they say you are director of war. They said that you are one of the recruiters for LURD in Sierra Leone, and you had an alias. Your name, you changed your name to Charlie Brown. So you
Charles Brown,
you honor oath, took oath, and is that true for the period, the circumstances, situation? People do what they have to do to get their objective. So is that true or not? Because so we can get your alias. Is that correct?
Thank you. Before I come to, and as you said, February during the opening time, I was here. You remember the president and myself was sitting, and you said you wanted to talk with the president. I was here. And some of the hearings that you sent communications, in fact, when Oscar Jaikuya, when a few other historians, I was sitting right the front row there. And, you know, I've been here, only that because we've been in the Senate Saka for some time. So I've been trapped of labor trying to re-strategize. So the second thing with this Charles Brown business, I'm not aware of that Charles Brown. I say I'm not aware of Charles Brown because I left the place, in fact, Guinea. How I left, nobody knows. So they just self-creation. In Sierra Leone, the Commandos in the early 90s to fight the RUF that were recruited by Eagle Normal, the Commandos were highly sophisticated. So who gave me money? What? If I run away from Guinea and go to Sierra Leone, then who am I recruiting to go where? I developing new forces, because the people already, when I left, the people were on their way towards Bombing Hills and other areas. So if I had gone to Sierra Leone to recruit, I heard Joe Wallace. Joe Wallace say I went there, I recruited, I don't know, 1,000. So how you can talk that? And he mentioned to me there that he was, you know, called for people to lie on me. And you can ask anybody from LURD to say he went on recruitment, he recruited people in Sierra Leone. In fact, the chief of staff was here, I think the former chief of staff was here 2 days ago or something like that. Ofori Dia was here. So he would have told you, the people came from all the way from Vonjima area, started coming, and all the way passing Bombing Hills. Where do I take Commandos from? I will run away from the place already, you know, getting subsistence from my mother, my alien mother, and my sisters and nieces. That I was at when I was in Sierra Leone. Let me tell you, YMCA on 4th Street, the hotel. YMCA got a fine hotel on 4th Street in Sierra Leone. I spent over 8 months in that place. So you just ask YMCA and just call my name, Isaac Nyenabo. Anybody, just do that connection. They will tell you that I was in Sierra Leone.
Okay, you denied ever being having an alias Charlie
I know
Brown,
Charlie Brown or Charlie Green.
and was recruiting with American embassy Jeep. The second question.
Oh, they say I was using American
Yes,
MSAG.
yes.
I'm sorry, please. I
Someone
was never
told me
connected
that.
to that.
And you,
I can't lie
in your
on American
land,
people.
who told me that? And you know you in high office here. If that was a lie you told, I have brought it up. Can you confirm whether or not the Guinea government assisted LURD to repel NPFL from their soil, and in return Guinea also aided LURD in its fight against Taylor regime? Can you confirm that?
I believe that you have the history on hand. And this history is very clear to you. That NPFL entered Guinea. Charles Taylor forces entered Guinea and went as far as 30 miles away from Conakry. And Joe Wehyee and others were called by the Guinean authority to assist them to, in fact, the refugee camp, they have killed people in the refugee camp. The refugee camp, you know, as to Conakry, the distance is about 35-40 miles away from Conakry. So they pass by the way, the Sierra Leone way, and you know, and enter, and then Gegedu and other areas and took over. And then the Guinean government, you know, because called Joe Wehyee and others, you know, to help them in the process. And in fact, there where Chris Fale died. You know, Chris Fale, one time of the FPC, Chris Fale. He was with NCDDRR some time ago. He went to Belgium and he was sent for by Joe Wehyee, and then they went to Kisidu, there where they had a conflict with woman business and they killed him. So there where he died. And then according to sources, the most powerful people, my sister, were Sekou Damati Kone and Asha. Asha being a traditional, you know, person of the president. There were no time that they ever met the president to discuss arms issue, and they will call you and myself. It's not possible. So I can't be, I would say yes, the Guinean government aided the process because it's something that every one of us know. But I never sat in a meeting where documents were signed or look, let's take the arms and put, if Sekou Kone or Asha, even you call the former chief of staff or LURD would not even tell you because they were in the bush. And you know the distance from Conakry to Vonyema to the border is like from here to Maryland Harper, and the road is paved, so from here to Maryland is even shorter, just from here to Tabou in Côte d'Ivoire. That's the distance. So like to say that I sat there for Lassana Conte and you know to put the arms out, that one I can't lie, but it's a fact that you know some assistance was provided by the Guinean government.
Yes, your first chairman, Mohamed Jumande, the allegation that he promised LURD $1 million to help, he pledged $1 million to help LURD. Are you aware, as Secretary General, how much of did LURD receive the $1 million? Or how much did LURD receive? Because he pledged $1 million for the support, because we want to know the financiers of these different warring factions.
Thank you very much. I think you have some classified information. In fact, that was the tune of the campaign in Sierra Leone. Yeah. When Mohamed Jumande was in Belgium, and then he sent some guys on the ground and said, look, I will provide $1 million. As soon as you elect me chairman, you know the campaign tune. So in fact, it brought every one of us. I became second campaign manager to Mohamed Jumande to be the chairman, because at least $1 million, and some of the other members were convinced overnight. And in fact, I remember George Joy asked a question: can we get 50% of it before we start? No, that Edward Fale said we need 50%. Then some people say, are you sure? I say, I am sure. I'm one of the campaign managers. That man in Belgium, they say he's a big business guy. I have not seen him anyway. I have not seen him. But a refugee being told of $1 million, I mean, you should know. So that's how we ran a campaign. But other than $1 million, to my records, if Jumande would spend about $15,000 or $20,000, you know, because it was not coming through me, and you know, so, but I believe it's in the tune of $15,000 to $20,000. US dollars, 15 to 20,000. But to say the $1 million, even 10% or 8, you know, that what caused the military to, even one of the reasons that the military stated that they did that resolution. They said because Mohammed Jemande promised $1 million and they can't get the money. Because I remember one of the instances, we had a meeting and then Asha said, where is the $1 million? You know, that was campaign time until he won. So I think you have the record, you have the information correct.
Okay. We just have to confirm some of these things.
Yeah, you have it correct.
You have discovered that not everything we hearing from people correct. So just to corroborate what we know. And to those out there who think we're not working for the money we're getting, they see that we really.
No, you are working. You had it correct. Because it was one of our campaign strategies, because you were on the line with us, calling and say, look, the $1 million, if you want to be transferred next week, it can be transferred. But let me be elected. And I took the floor that evening. I was in Freetown. It was not easy.
It's good to bring this out to those who really follow people based on promises. That those talk, someone call it cheap talk. So we have to be able to design from cheap talk to reality. You know? Yeah,
but mind you now, we the student of political science, Machiavelli developed the political map. He said that in order, he developed the 10 different, issues. He said, 1, don't follow people women. The Machiavellian, the prince.
Yes,
2, don't play with people money. 3, make promises, but don't lay 50% to those promises in order for you to succeed. And he also said, use the church to manipulate your political interest. And in politics, personal interest is number 1. It's number 1. You see, politicians will come and say, look, our people are suffering, our this and this, so I want to be senator to go represent you. But why are your people suffering now? Let Councillor Pierre Boo represent all and stay back. They say, no, I will be. You see, so that's how it looks like. So, living up to the promises, Machiavelli said we shouldn't do that. He said 50% of the promises.
And most politicians always take that other part of Machiavelli, that the person who make you can be the person who can break you too.
Yeah, because he said in one of the yeah, you are correct. He said keep your enemy in sight. Then he said again that make friends, but be careful, because the friends will understand you better than yourself. Because the objective of the friends that are coming towards you, they have their own thinking and the thinking of the other class. So be careful. You are making friends, but the friends will know you better than yourself. You see it? So basically, this is where it comes from. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and also for giving your opinion on why the revolution of 1980 and 1990 failed. I repeat, you said part of it that you had segmented political ideologies with the progressive. So some came with socialism, some came with traditional socialism, and the other
African communism.
Of
this coming the Nkrumah tactics and all of that. And came with capitalism of John Locke.
Yeah, making history and new terminology now coming for the students of political science and government. So thank you very much for contributing to this process.
Thank you.
And we look forward, if any other information that we have that we should call you in camera, please make yourself available.
No problem, no problem. Thank you very, very much. I hope that you'll make one of the copies to the whole discussion and give me a copy of the recordings, so I'll be able to look at it. Okay, man.
Thank you very much. Honorable Nyenabo. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you, my queen.
I'm glad that you came to the TRC and made some clarification on the issue of Grand Jide not being part of the panel. Most often, I don't talk about these things because I believe that the TRC process is not about
Let me go ahead now. So long you say Grand Jide, let me just start the exercise. Because I've now gone 50% of what, to exhaust myself. So long I know where you come from now. I was in Monrovia when the team process started. The TRC was not created on a basis that every tribe in Liberia must be represented. The vetting process started and encouraged every Liberian to participate, and people were vetted. At the same time, when the process ended and you people were selected, for some of us who knew the history of the past, knew directly that even if, because some people went to us, we had a meeting at GW Gacy, and Honorable Dwell raised the issue, George Dwell. He said, look, this place, and Honorable Penno too, Zoe Penno, he said, the TRC, we are not represented. The Crown people are not represented. So then I asked him, oh man, do you know Umusila? And I remember on 2 occasions you were sent for by Honorable Penno. And then one of the meetings I said I can't attend because even if you don't know that Umusila come from Grand Jide, they all go tell you, well, I'm not going to go there. Then I asked Honorable Dwell, you know that you were in AG. Umu was in AG. So who were your queen in AG? She was queen for over 2 years. She was supposed to be 1 year queen, but then over 2 years she was queen for AG. So who were your queen that contested with other queens with other high schools? So every multilateral Cali and other people. So how can you say that? Through her instrumentality, William Glay had to give, she made an appeal at the Queen contest, William Glay had to give scholarship to some students. So it is not the, at most, in Liberia, there should be time immediately after the process. That's the reason why when you call for extension, we say 9 months will be okay. After the process, I think you need to group people, get them in category, and invite people again to see how we can condense some of these ideas. Because if you don't do that, some of the people will stand by the lies and they still hide themselves. So what is required is to call people again, the intellectuals, and say, look, let's look at this thing. Because people use rhetoric here, people baffle issue, people do this, people attack. That's not the issue. We need to have a clear-cut history. And I can tell you that nobody can tell you from history in Grand Jide County that you are not from Grand Jide County. It's not possible. In fact, we were on Cotton. I remember your brother, myself, Bangalipa, he led news business, all day radio in your ear. He and her brother and her father was taken by INPFL, July 28th. They live Ashmore Street at the end there. There where the women had their houses. And from mosque, they collected him and carried according to report. And I remember when we were on Cotton, if we don't want to eat the dormitory food that they used to cook for us, we go there, we say, your cook, midnight, then you see the smoke coming up. So that today now she's not from Grand Jide. So I want to make that appeal to you. I mean, the history is distorted, please.
Well, thank you very much. What I really want to say that, and thank you too for relating my own experience. Most often we don't talk about these things. For us, or for me, in Liberia today, what is more important is peace. All of us here have different professional backgrounds. We came to this commission because we felt that we could contribute at this point in time.
She comes from the medical school. She's a nurse.
In Liberia today, everybody is high. What we need more is reconciliation. Even among the faction, there are problems. You just explain what your former colleague or one of the LURD person said about you. He came here, he said you were director of war, and this is not the only faction. It's among all the factions. Not talking about Liberia as a whole. There's so much division. I just want you to tell us, give some form, what do you think in terms of recommendation that will be able to unite this country, that will be able to help all of us in Liberia today to move forward? Before we came to this, people of interest hearing, we went across the country, we listened to victims, we know one way or the other, we all are victims. But there are some people, they are more victims than another. And then they need so much, the need in Liberia for reconciliation is so much. As a lawmaker today, I only ask you to make some form of recommendation to this commission that will be able to bring the people of Liberia together now or later so that we'll be able to move forward as a nation.
Thank you. You know, we are in transition. Whether you fought war, you didn't fight, you were in America or you in Asia or in Europe, everybody got traumatized psychologically. Because you heard your brother was killed, your uncle, your friend, your this and that, everybody became traumatized. So this transition requires a process. People will resist. In fact, when TRC was first established, people did not look at the function of TRC. But when TRC started calling people, some people will hold press conferences in their offices, I am not going to TRC. But when you pass it now, that your signature that make it into law. But gradually, when you see people appearing, expressing, correcting, it will take time. But not far from a distant future. Democracy, the way as student of politics, the way I see democracy, as she said, is the government by the rule of law. And when they say rule of law, it encompasses one, the people have the right to determine who governs them. That one. Two, the people have the right to ask who governs them to give account of what they are doing, of their actions. Three, the people have the right to issue legal limits as to the protection and freedom of the people. That's why in the Constitution, if you look, Article 20, 21, 22, freedom, at least to give breathing space for people. Now, that's why you call democracy. But if you were looking at history, we were first, polity, P-O-L-I-T-Y, it's a form of government of the middle class. But when it becomes corrupt, the one that been used in America, they're not rich people who can be president in America. They're not poor people, the middle class. Now, they use that form of government. But when it becomes corrupt, it leads to democracy. But when democracy is far stretched, it leads to mob. So everybody got rights. So even you butting people, you hating them, you doing this, that you're right. So sometimes government has to come in, to issue some legal limits as to the kind of rights. Now, oligarchy is the rule of the few. If oligarchy becomes corrupt, it leads to aristocracy, the best few. And it started the family apartheid regime. The oligarchy regime was the True Party, the Republican, that you had the old elites, then you had the new elites. The old elite lasted from 1848 and ended in the mid-1920s. Then the new elites, the old elites have the same common language, culture, and ideology. But the new elites took into consideration those from the West Indies and then brought in other indigenous that are being assimilated into their culture. And then they started moving along. That ended 1980. So that form, when it becomes corrupt, it leads to aristocracy. When aristocracy becomes corrupt, it leads to what? Chaos. Autocracy are chaos. Now, another form of government, that is monarchy, because there are three forms. When monarchy becomes corrupt, it leads to tyranny. Because you got one person, the king, queen ruling. When queen, king decide authoritarianism, then you go into tyranny. Now, we did not start from politics as a form of government. We started from oligarchy. But then when we went in then we switched to democracy, the second phase of politics. So our own of corrupt oligarchy that must lead us to another form within that. We jump to other form. So as a result, we say democracy. So everybody's speaking of democracy. But you're speaking of democracy, those three pillars that whole democracy must be adhered to. But when they quote, even when they quote the speaking, nobody listen. Just the Inchimo gave order, they say, who told you I honor just the Inchimo? But then what you want? You see it? So, you see, these are some of the systems, but it's a process. What we need to do is that some of us, after this period, when you announce that this is the end of the period, then we'll be able to, our own conceptualized idea from our own point, we'll be able to draft some instruments and submit it to you and say from our own standpoint as fundamental thinkers, this is what we see. But we are in transition. Everybody traumatized. It is not the issue of people holding gun. But if you see somebody who had killed your brother or your uncle, you look at the person, and when you ask the person here at TRC, the person says, no, I don't know about it. And you know that you were there. And you know, and the facts are there. You say, no, I don't know. And you can't say, my man, don't leave security, you'll catch the man, you won't do it. The man will be boasting and you'll be going out. You know. But these things happen. But what required is that swallowing the bitter pills and at the end of the day setting up a necessary procedures as to the corrective mechanism, to finding a way of finding a corrective mechanism that will be designed by the intellectual class. And that's not the class that live on rhetorics. Don't live with that class. The class that had this last hours of political congress, they can't make it. They try in the 70s, they try in the 60s, they try in the 80s, they try in the 90s, they can't make it. But those that see their future ahead of them and see and thinking that the way Liberia looks like right now, Liberia is looking like the poorest country in the world. Why is it? Because no development. But if Sierra Leone is poorer than Liberia, and Sierra Leone is a bit developed, then why not Liberia? But look at the 2 years. Debt crisis, $4.7 billion. You have about 2.8 or $1.8 billion being waived. You are setting up the legacy, setting up the PRS system, looking at the 4 pillars, restructuring the armed forces of Liberia and its security apparatus, looking at strengthening good governance and the rule of law, and looking at infrastructure, looking at the economic revitalization processes. So, handling our basic social services, taking care of schools, sanitation process, and all of that. If this process continues in the next 15 years, you'll find out that Liberia will go ahead. But we have to be patient. People attack, but we still got to be patient. So I will admonish you to be patient. We'll get somewhere. We'll get somewhere.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Witness. Before asking questions, want to take note of your recommendation that find a way to group people together to continue the dialogue and discussion after the TRC process.
Yes, yeah.
And we think it coincides with our vision of a national consultation on reconciliation and a national conference.
Thank you.
Yes,
that's good.
We have that on the drawing boards, but today we haven't.
Please have my name there to participate.
Okay, certainly.
Thank you.
It's just that funding of that activity is a problem.
We'll call on the international community and we'll lobby with our colleagues too to see how they can do their appropriation. Please.
Okay. Yeah. That would be very, very good. Thank you. I'd like to ask, firstly, the position of Secretary General was an elected position. Could you explain the functions and the role of the Secretary General?
The way LURD in the first stage was that because you found out that there were a little confidence crisis. So LURD was looking like almost like political party. How can you say you went to fight war, then you have elections? So what we decided to do was the position of Secretary General was the head of the Secretariat who will be just writing papers, putting policy documents together, encouraging the Liberians in the diaspora to understand the working, sitting at the internet every day, giving the objective of LURD and all of that. So you found out that in the states and other areas, representatives started speaking out and all of that. People in Belgium, Charles Benin them and others started speaking on behalf of LURD. But prior to them going to gay, they were speaking for LURD because of the kind of articulations that were made. But as he ethos, the dimension had changed. Yeah, that's the function of the Secretary General, to take meetings, he is the head of the Secretariat, as the National Executive Committee, sits down, get a political wing or something, propaganda wing. So that's how it was looking like.
You spoke of the operations of Tile.
Yeah.
And that he was
the best, a fearful general.
Yeah. And
to general.
He was responsible for the Lutheran Church massacre. We have others to come and say yes, he was and was part of. He had a death squad. Can you speak more to the operations of Tile, if you know? How come you knew he was the person and who he worked with? Who was his commanders?
When Tile came in 1990, I think he was brought as a hunter, from Nyenabo, where Honorable Dwell comes from. And
where you also come from?
No, I come from Chien.
Oh, you come from Chien?
Yeah, I come from Chien, Tuzon. And I remember you visited me in Tuzon. So they were brought in 1990. And when they entered 1990, Tile was sent on the front line, the main captain. And the elephant hunters were so brave. He had something on his head, and then, he moves to bullet and all of that. So he was working under General Julu at the executive mansion. Then from there, he was sent under Nimle on the front line and then retreated. But at the last days now, Tile was a fearful commander. He had the own troop and he was moving, and then, there is no way that you can stand on his way. So that's easily I can say about Tile, because even people who were not in a barracks heard about Tile. Tile was friend. They call him Marco Tile. Later I read Yubote Bo and he named Marco Tile, but we only knew Tile because when he came first, Doe made him captain, and from captain he became colonel, and then when Doe left to the port, and then Tile was having his own troops down. So to be very firm, during the war, 1990, I think around August or September, Archie Green, he used to play for Mason at Cotton. When I heard the name, the evening hours that Archie Green was killed around Oro by AFL people, that's how I left Matali. I'm too disappointed. We were very close when we were in the same dormitory together. And on Cotton, you spent 1 or 2 years, your Lola brothers and sisters. So as soon as we got our news, Branner, Bidel, Gabriel, all of us, Timon Collins, we started sitting down. We all almost gave up because he used to play basketball for Cotton, BLU here at YMCA, and then they gave him scholarship and all. So when they killed him, then I heard about, her brother Bangali, then can you have strength to go say you go and wear uniform to go fight? You can't. So then people start discouraging them. My brother-in-law, Lassana Rabos in Looking Town, and all of that. So the only thing that will require, maybe when you die, then you die. That's all about it.
Reference the cattle camp massacre.
The cattle camp massacre was done, as I said, it was done by NPFL.
That is
but it was done with skills, according to information. Because the committee, I know Wallo committee or Wallo committee that was Wako committee that presented as AFL, they deceived the public. Because what they did was they wore army uniform. And some of the people, look, in Nima get 3 major tribes there. No, 4, 5. They got the Gio, the Mano, the Madingo, the Kran, and B. Yeah, B in Nima River says they all in there. So 5 tribes. So most of the strong fighters like Nathan Gay and others, they come from the Kran area there in Nima. Most of the strong fighters. So when you see those people coming and they're doing our, you think that Kran men coming towards you to save you. So to the point where they said to Ase Musa Gate, they used to smear Crown people. That the same Crown people that are fighters identifying the same Crown people. That's all. There was no medicine to identify Crown men. They say, oh, they can smear Crown people online. We used to hear it. So the cattle massacre, they went under the disguise of AFL Crown. And you know, people speaking out. They did it to Duporo, the Duporo massacre. People were thinking our AFL too. But the NPFL, that was the Marine group that did that. In fact, the Marine group, when they threw one grenade or rocket, one grenade right to Robert Street. You know, sometime in the 90s, they threw grenade during Sawyer time to Robert Street, one entertainment place to Robert Street. Where Elizabeth, opposite Elizabeth Bannerman place, right there. They threw something. So, you know, people were thinking that these things were AFL, but not AFL. But AFL cannot exonerate itself from the Lutheran massacre. It can't exonerate itself from the intervention in UN compound, because I remember the next morning Doe went there and Doe was too disappointed. He went there in army uniform. You know, that day he got in a Mercedes and he was waving and he went there. And he said, but how the people can do this? I can remember that. You know, that's not the objective. Even when Johnny Ball was killed, Doe gave up. You know, Johnny Ball was one of the trusted guys of Doe. He's from Nima. When he was killed, he gave up. Because Ball was the one that used to have some of the personal things. And he was in a mansion with a man. You know, even I think we said McLean was in a mansion too. And he said, like, okay. So, you know, but when Johnny Ball died, that evening hours where I say Johnny Ball died, those sat down for a long time. I said, but I don't think we can make it. How are you? Behind the mansion on the football field there. He sat on a car because he trusted that guy so much. And then the guy said, because where they had a Chinese embassy, the next house there is where Ball used to live. So he said he was rushing there to pick up something like that. And he was caught. Yeah.
And up to now, there's no certainty on who killed Johnny Paul.
What?
Is there any information on who killed Johnny Paul?
I don't really know, because there were a lot of speculations. The first speculation was because Johnny Ball was closer to Doe, so the AFL people went killing. The other speculation was that the NPFL, so it just left in limbo that way. But others said that it was AFL because he was very close to Doe, so people they envy him for that. And others said no, that because that NPFL zone he went, so that's where he was killed. So I can't give you a tangible, historical fight on that, because the war was already on, and then you can't easily go and ask questions like that. It will be difficult. But when he died, I remember Doe was depressed very seriously.
Can you say how long you were in the barracks?
1990 or April 6th or September 18th, because I buried at my own rescue ground.
So you went there on several occasions.
But where will you go, my brother? 1990, when it was tough, we all ran in the barrack. April 6th, we ran in the barrack. If I was not in the barrack April 6th, you think I was going to be alive by now? And then September 18th, I was in the barracks. And the historical fact with Doe then, how they were taken by the C.O. Singbe, the mortician, and Samuel Vanni. How embarrassed.
That's the next question. Where were you to observe this? Because you spoke as
I mentioned that.
I
said I was that Moses Wright, myself, and Washington Galley, former superintendent of Nigeria. We were read the mall. And you know the mall before going to Postake, there's a mall right there. We were by the side of the mall, and their bodies were inside. But we didn't care. So nobody was afraid at that time. So we were just by the side of the mall around 12. And we heard Doe was crying. Samuel, please, when I'm a woman business, the history was that the woman that Doe married to was Samuel Vanni's wife before. So in retaliation, so he decided to get him out. So when they were saying, when I'm a woman business, they take about their 11 children, they can't stand by themselves. I beg you, this and that. In fact, C.O. Singbe Jeep, that green Jeep, Land Rover Jeep, the back of the Jeep, one of them stepped the bike and they bust the windshield, they bust the glass. If anybody was around there, that's September 18, they would have told you. The Jeep C.O. Singbe was using, the back of it got, they bust it, they stepped it. They bust it because they were fighting to get out. And when they finished committing the act, Samuel Vanni went back in the barrack around 3 o'clock in the morning to Moses Wright. They said we finished with the people, but the chief said he needed the people blood, so we put it in the bucket. We didn't shoot them, we just cut their throat and put it in the bucket. And then, after doing that now, then he said, Moses, you vexed? So Moses said, no, that instruction from our CRC. The CRC said you must do it, then I will get vexed. I think I said that clearly. So that's how it happened.
I just wanted
but
to...
a lot of people were killed during that period too. They were collected from jail. Even Jali then were there and they were lucky. They beat Gerald Glay in our jail. Because everybody naked. So when they go for them in the night, it's difficult to identify. Because when you see everybody naked, no brief for you, it's difficult. Now when you make yourself naked and 4 different men stand here to identify you, it'll be hard. Either you make yourself naked or you put cap on your hair, you look different. So the how were looking. So they were looking for Glade then that night, and luckily he escaped it, but finally he died in Ghana.
If you have any contact for Moses Wright, you think you could assist the commission?
All right, I will try to have you contacted. His son is here. And I think he spoke with me 2 months ago, 2 or 3 months ago. He wants to come home. So I will try to get a contact. He's in Pendel. I'll try to get a contact.
Okay.
But he really want to come home because he spoke with me 2-3 months ago. He really want to come.
We appreciate it. Speaking of September 18, the Episcopal Church.
Episcopal Church? Where?
On Camp Johnson Road. I don't know if you have any.
That Episcopal Church scenario, because there were other crown and non-crown people that ran in our church. And then ATU had to go there and spray the people. But I don't really have the fact because people were running away. So looking back to Camp Johnson Road was difficult. The first thing were in the barrack, but people were killed in there. But most of the people that were killed in there were not crown people. But because Johnson lived right annexed to that church, so they thought that the crown people had just run in there, and to seek refuge. But actually, most of the people that died in there, 60% of them were not crown people. They were just killed innocently because they went in. They were trying to look for crown people. But then, if you ask questions, who are you? This and day in the night, then people will escape. So that's how they killed them. But ATU did that.
During your tenure with LURD, was there any point in time you became aware or was informed or knowledgeable about the fact that atrocities were being committed by LURD on the front in Liberia?
Well, to be very frank with you, I remember that LURD, when it started, I remember that one of the priests, even arrested in Bombing Hill, was taken to Guinea. Priest, Father, somebody. Gary were taken to Guinea and from there went to Italy or something, or Rome. So, some of the concerns that LURD had, but you know, the military, sometimes you don't know, and there's a difference. So, but I did not recall to the point where, before I left LURD, that they were investigating people. In fact, some of LURD fighters, I think Zili then is still in jail in Masaka. Since 2001, Zili went in jail. If he had not died, he's still there. See, so what I said, maybe the chief of staff came here. He must have explained, because they were, you know, on the front line and all of that. Or the chairman must have explained, but during my period, you know, they were not a period that they came closer to Monrovia to actually identify, you know, all of these activities. They were not my period. So I don't just want to create, you know, false scenario, you know, either to deny or to accept or to say, no, this one did that, because I was not around that time anymore. But I remember about one priest that was taken from Bombing Hills.
Since after you left, have you been acquainted with that very fact that allegations of violations were made against the institution you helped to form?
Yes, because I read in the papers, some of the members you listed in terms of perpetrators, alleged perpetrators, there were few persons from there that you listed. So you must have had some witnesses or some people testifying or giving their situation during the period of LURD. So I cannot deny or accept, unless those who came to testify here, you know, whether perpetrators or alleged perpetrators, and you know, they will be able to, you know, get the information. But at the same time, we must be guided with these people creating scenarios for other people. So that's where I come from. Because you had 8-9 months, you were doing your, you know, research, going from county to county. So you must have met people to say, yes, 1 or 2 persons did this thing to me.
Yeah, with the chairman, I think I have 2 more questions to ask. One, you were with LURD up to 2003.
2002, ain't it?
2002, did you go to, when you went to Accra for the comprehensive peace accord? By that time, you had left them?
No. Every political party that represented in Accra, every warring faction people, everybody that participated, whether they were warring faction or political parties, asked them whether they saw a structure that looked like me.
Okay. Yes.
I was never around there. My first time to go to Accra was the time after my training in 2004 with World Bank in Nairobi, Kenya, and then we had to do the reorganization of the debt, you know, with the IMF. That was my first time I went to Accra. So I was never in Accra. 2000, you know, 3 or 4. You were talking
2002, where were you? You were in Monrovia?
No, I was in Sierra Leone. I left Guinea straight to Sierra Leone.
Okay, although you were in Sierra Leone, but you, in the answer, in response to an answer here where you mentioned your chairman of LURD, I think you're referring now to Sekou Damante Kone. He came here, and when you asked him question about any missile falling in Monrovia, you know, and he said there were no missile that fell in Monrovia. And in fact, he has some name then for the missile, you know. So are you aware, or you can say with certainty, because you all did have heavy weapons based on the assistance given from Guinea?
To be very frank with you.
Do you know, or did you hear?
To be very frank with you.
Yeah.
In terms of missile falling on Guinea, we were listening to radio from Sierra Leone. If I tell you that this missile fell because I remember Jonathan Pelele and a few other persons reported that near the embassy, this place here, Grace Manor, I said Grace Manor now. Greystone. They said that missile fell around there, and then it was on CNN. I was at YMCA, and, and we saw that on CNN. But to say that it was there or this and this, I was not with there in that time, so I don't want to lie. Yeah, I was not with there. So I think the chairman, the secretary general, and the chief of staff will better tell you, what type of weapon they used when they were striking.
You can see that some have come, and even you preface your statement by saying certain people came and did not tell the truth.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to verify certain statements for correction.
And the best thing, if you get some military experts that are not part and parcel of this inquiry process, and then you call them and say, you call the gun name and the missile name and give the distance. So if they stand at this distance, they can get to here. They can easily clarify or disclaim the fact of somebody saying this, because those are the formula that I think one got to use to know what is the distance when you fire AK, which distance before they falls. What is the distance of the bomb? All of that, they got to check that. So when the man said, I was standing on New Bridge and I fired the bomb, but it didn't reach on Ashmore Street, then you'll know right away whether it's true or false. But I don't come from a military background, so,
You have a staff, at least you said that Guinea helped LURD. Did you hear, or are you aware of this allegation that the support that you all got from Guinea that benefited LURD indirectly was of $200 billion military support that was given to Guinea from any international country? Are you aware of that? Or did you hear that?
To be very frank, us having meetings somewhere, because in some embassy, I think I got the information recently, and I think something was like people were holding meetings, but it was classified. So maybe people have meetings to the embassy, but when you check the Guinean embassy, I never went there one day. So you can call them and give my name, because and then you go to U.S. embassy now, you show your passport and everything, they will take your particular before you go in. So I never went there any day, nowhere, anytime to sit down with anybody. But those things, the direct people were non-physical to see them and say, look, I'm the one coming give you money, or I'm the one this, because things were classified, very classified. So it was difficult, and in every given organization or situation, most especially where you say they're going to give money or they're going to discuss this one, they will not call everybody to say come. Maybe from your own research you will know during this period these so people visited the so embassy. We got some information at the time in Guinea that they visited some kind of Western embassy. Yeah, but whether they got money from there or they didn't get it, nobody was ready to give us information.
Thank you. Just want to know your involvement to the extent which you were involved, and thank you for giving us the clarification on some of these issues. Thank you.
All of what I've said, most time for me, you can do some research by calling some of those people, and because I'm not in a position to give hearsay information and consider it as something genuine and then tell people. So you can do a follow-up on that.
One last question, Mr. Witness. LURD was formed nearly 10 years after the conflict. By that I mean after the active participation of AFL, NPFL, INPFL, ULIMO-K, ULIMO-J, LPC in a conflict in which there was massive violations of human rights and international all the standards. My question is that since LURD was formed much later after all of these experiences, was there any substantive mechanisms built into the organizing structure of LURD to guard against or to mitigate these?
In terms of violations?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's why I said the way LURD was structured, it was like political party. You know, have NECSO, have the Edo Council to the middle, have military. So you don't just jump from up there and go talk to the army men. No way. Because the Edo Council are elderly people that are in between. They go and advise the NEC and they also advise the military. So, they made it in such a way that, and those who crafted the document, they well, because they never went there for infiltration. They restricted even former warrant fashion heads or being chairman or lawyer. So they made it in such a way, that, there were restrictions that people could not move in and out. It was not the military resolution that came from the army, it was going to stand. That structure was going to stand, but it could not work. It could not work. There were efforts, but it could not work.
So nothing really was put in place to protect civilians, to guard against widespread abuses, as far as you know?
Well, from the formative stage, documents were put in place. But as I said, when LURD was moving now, the easier person that will tell you whether those documents that were put in place from the funding stage, whether it laid by that concept. When ULIMO was funded in Sierra Leone, when Siki was the chairman, before Haji Kroman took over, with this Amayulu support and all of that, you found out that the objective for ULIMO at that time, as it moves, and it was changing, and later now you have ULIMO K, ULIMO J. So these are some of the things. The formation of an institution, the vision that you envisage in the formation of an institution, in the application is different. Even in government, when you have a political party and you say, look, we will make sure that this thing happens. We will make sure that this and this. So. As soon as you come, you get from campaigning time to governance. Slightly, when you're not strong, you leave the role. You digress a little, or you leave focus. But those who enter the struggle will be in a better position to say, well, this was this and that was that. Because I did not go to Fonjima one day. So how do I say that in Fonjima this a day? If I say it now, you will ask me a question, have you gone to Fonjima? I said, no, I don't go there, but I was standing nearby and the people told me. So it's just not good for that.
Honorable Senator Isaac Nyenabo, we want to thank you very much for your time spent here today with the Commission, providing your experience, answering the queries of the Commission, and of course advancing some recommendations. Now that your testimony is over,